Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Football Frenzy. I'm Paul Valley, and with me as always is Adam Ruff.
What's going on?
Big time win. We both kind of predicted a blowout. Far cry from the 23 to 16 or 23 to 17 game that it was the first time around. Ravens beat the Bengals 49 to 13. It was never close, never in doubt.
Not a question.
Lamar Jackson putting another gold star performance out there on the field. He won his third AFC Offensive Player of the Week award, second consecutive one. Yep. For comparison, Flacco didn't even win 3 in his entire career in Baltimore, and the Ravens' record is Ray Rice with 5. I saw that on Twitter. I can't remember who said it. Apologize. I want to give you credit, but I can't remember who said it.
Yeah, 5 overall in his entire career as a Ravens. That's the most for a Ravens offensive player. So
yeah, well, Lamar's well on his way. He's got 3 this year, and he's only made 16 career.
Still got more time this year.
Right. So 223 yards, 3 touchdowns, another perfect passer rating on the road. First NFL quarterback to do that twice on the road in the same season. Yes. 15 of 17 in that game. And another 65 yards rushing and a touchdown, capped off by that whirlwind, spinning, juking, monstrous run that he had, 47 yards to the house, where he left half the Bengals defense on the ground. Just another epic performance by Lamar Jackson. You know, you don't want to keep starting the show with the same guy, but when he's the most dynamic player in the NFL, you kind of have to.
It's a must. He's must-see TV. And
right.
If you don't see in the same light that the NFL saw Michael Vick in the mid-2000s, must-see TV, regardless of whether you're a fan of the Atlanta Falcons or Michael Vick, you felt like you needed to sit down. If the game was on TV, you were watching it. If it wasn't on TV, you were turning to SportsCenter, NFL Live, whatever you could. What did Michael Vick do today?
Right.
What happened on the field with Michael Vick today? And that's exactly what Lamar Jackson's becoming. And it's more so, the electrifying run is one thing, yes, but the passing, the pinpoint passing. Out of that 15 out of 17, one of them was a spike.
Right. And the other one was a drop.
And the other one was a complete drop. So he technically could be perfect, 100%. So
according to the rating, he was perfect.
It's one of those things where you turn it in and you're watching the Ravens play and you see Lamar Jackson. You're seeing a kid develop before your very eyes into becoming one of the best players in all of football. He's in the top 3 of MVP talks as it stands right now. His team is rallying around him. You see video of Mark Ingram on the sidelines getting the Ravens fans out in Cincinnati to chant MVP, MVP. His team is 100% behind him. He's got everybody flowing in one direction. We're here to win. Win, win, win. And he is performing phenomenally. There's no way you can't start off anything to talk about with the Ravens other than Lamar Jackson is your first topic. He's got to be your first topic. It's just the way it works.
And one of the most impressive things I've seen, if you were following along on social media, on television, they showed Harbaugh going over to Lamar on the bench and having a conversation with him. He says, kids are going to be wearing the number 8 playing quarterback for the next 20 years. Won't that be awesome to see? And he says, yeah, I'd like to see that, but when I'm older.
Yes.
Right now, I'm trying to go win a Super Bowl.
Exactly.
That's the leadership that you want out of your quarterback. It's the leadership that we've never seen in Baltimore, aside from Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. You can only do so much on the defensive side of football.
Yes.
When your quarterback has that leadership quality, you are in for sustained success. And it's just, he's just dynamic. He's electrifying. There's no other words to describe it. And you had this MVP talk about him, and rightfully so. But he doesn't even care about that. All he wants to do is go win football games and get his team to the next level.
He saw in his press conference this week. It was, just how he talks, how he carries himself. Today's, I believe it's today, or was it yesterday, where he was asked a question: do you see a little bit of yourself in Deshaun Watson? No, I play like Lamar Jackson. I don't play like anybody else. Mm-hmm. He doesn't care about anybody else. He cares about what his team does first. Everything else comes second to him. Doesn't matter. He could go out there and have an absolute bomb of a game this week. Mm-hmm. If they win, you know what he's going to say? Hey, man, we won the game.
Right.
It's all that matters.
Right.
And that conversation between him and John Harbaugh just shows something even greater for this team. The connection between the head coach and the quarterback. It seems as though this has become one of those teams where you see the connection, the bond, the sportsmanship mentality of everybody involved of getting that one goal, that senior goal. He mentioned something about sending Marshall Yanda out with a Super Bowl victory, calling him a GOAT, a Hall of Famer. He sees the bigger picture, and John Harbaugh has recognized that. He recognizes this is Lamar's team, and he's willing to let Lamar take it as far as he wants to take it. And to see that growth just in that short amount of time and know that there's so much more because he's only 22 years old. Everybody watched that LSU-Alabama game, right? Joe Burrow is 24 years old. Quarterback for LSU. He's 24. Probably going to win the Heisman and going to get drafted next year. Be 25, and Lamar is 2 years younger than he is.
Yep.
Take that into perspective and realize what we have here in Baltimore and what we have going forward watching this Baltimore Ravens team. It's something to be super excited about going forward.
Well, I think there's a little something more to that conversation that Harbaugh had, and somebody pointed it out, and that is a great head coach going up to his young superstar team leader and just instilling more confidence. Instilling more confidence. If you don't think Harbaugh knew what he was doing by having that conversation, now look, they're both good men. Harbaugh's a man of God. He's a very good man.
Yes.
But he knew what he was doing there. He knew what that conversation was going to do for Lamar. Not that Lamar needed it, but just in case, 22 years old, to have that good of a head on his shoulders and then have your coach come up and instill even more confidence in you, watch out. Now look, this game, like I said, never in doubt from start to finish.
No.
Ravens absolutely dominant. Lamar put up all those numbers in 3 quarters, okay? But it wasn't all great.
No.
It wasn't all great. Look,
No.
I expected to see Ingram and Edwards just ram the ball down their throats. They didn't do it. 13 carries, 51 yards, 1 score between the two of them. You know, Justice Hill really didn't get much going in the game either. And on the defensive side of the ball, they gave up 157 yards rushing to the Bengals. 114 by Mixon on 30 carries, so less than 4 yards a carry. The team overall was held to less than 4 yards per carry, but they carried the ball over 40 times. 157 yards rushing, and you're going up against a team in the Texans that has Carlos Hyde over 800 yards, and as a team, they're averaging 5 yards a carry and almost 150 yards a game.
Yes, they are. We're what we saw on Sunday, I think, was a multitude of things. One, on the very first defensive snap for the Ravens, you lose one of your best run stoppers in Michael Pierce to an ankle injury. That right there goes to show that having those two beefy men in the middle of your defensive line is very vital. Brandon Williams goes out. We saw earlier, we've always seen here in Baltimore watching these Ravens again. Brandon Williams goes out, our run defense just goes to trash. We saw what happened this past Sunday. Michael Pierce goes out, it went to garbage, and a lot of that I think has to play into the role of what Cincinnati's offensive game plan was going to be. They're not going to put Ryan Finley in a position to fail by throwing it 45 times like they were doing with Andy Dalton. No, we're going to run the ball, and we're going to run the ball, and we're going to run the ball, and we're going to run some more to alleviate that stress. Now, the Ravens offense just beat them up. The Ravens defense made big plays. You had a pick six again by Marcus Peters deep in their own territory. I believe is at the 14-yard line. 89-yard pick six. They had a strip sack fumble by quickly becoming one of my favorite Ravens, Patrick Ricard, and the pickup for the scoop and score by Tyus Bowser. It was, I think the Ravens' lack of running game was dictated by the fact that they really didn't have to show a whole lot. And I think they put it on cruise control, offensively speaking, I believe. Greg Roman was thinking about what was coming forward.
Right.
You know, you got Greg Roman saying, you know what, we got a big game against a top-flight team in Houston. Do we show anything that we don't really necessarily... I think he scrapped half of his play calling.
Right.
He scrapped it. He said, you know what? No, there's no point. Saving it. Going to take it in the next week. And the Bengals, they did their thing, and that is what it is. But again, their game plan, we lost a player. I think the Ravens tried to shore that up to big defensive line signings.
Pecco and Ellis.
Pecco and Ellis. And anybody who's watched the Ravens knows is all the years that Ellis or Pecco played with the Bengals. Hell of a run defender. And he shores up that. Ellis, a very good run player himself out in Oakland. He was signed to a 3-year extension this offseason. He gets injured, they IR him and release him. You're trash, our treasure. We'll flip them. We've done it all season. We're not scared. Eric DeCosta, EDC, as they're calling him now, he's not afraid to make a move and say, you know what? This is what we're going to do. We're going to move forward. We're going to push. We're going to find the best players available to us, shore up any kind of insecurities we have, and just push forward. Cyrus Jones gone. Iman Marshall back to active roster.
Right.
Special teams, a big, strong, physical defensive back just in case if somebody goes down in that secondary. And I'm still feeling good with these signings. I feel good going into this Houston game. I really do believe they have the ability to stop this run and force Deshaun to have to beat him with the pass, which might sound crazy to some people.
Because that's what he does.
He throws the ball very well, but I feel like the defensive secondary has the ability to slow down some of these weapons. Now, unfortunately, Will Fuller comes back this week. Gives them another deep threat, and it's not just Hopkins. Now, Will Fuller comes back. They have Kenny Stills there. You know, they can all do damage. Hopkins had a little bit of an off year this year.
Well, yeah, he's averaging less than 10 yards per catch.
Less than 10 yards per catch for DeAndre Hopkins is an abnormality.
He's arguably the best receiver.
You don't want to let him get loose.
Right.
Yeah, that's the absolute last person you want to see get loose in your secondary. So it's I don't know exactly how they're going to do it. They'll have something for him. Don Wink Martindale will have something for him, but it all starts up front with getting pressure on Deshaun Watson.
Well, it could turn out to be a shootout. And that's kind of what you see with these Texans games, because the Texans have the 29th ranked pass defense, allowing 277.3 yards per game. They have the 3rd ranked rush defense. They're allowing 84.2 yards per game. So I think you're going to have to see Lamar Jackson come out here and for a second straight game try and win this game with his arm. Now, last week he didn't need to do that. I think last week he had his detractors in the back of his mind, like, oh, you don't think I can throw? You think that I'm just
I think even Greg Roman was sitting there thinking, you don't think this boy can pass?
Right.
We'll show you.
So they came out just like they did in that Dolphins game, and they threw the ball to a perfect quarterback rating. And with that in mind, I'm going to jump into my segment of Shade, and I hope that this is the last segment of Shade that I do on this, because it's an every week thing. No matter what Lamar Jackson does, you have guys like Eric Mangini that are sitting there saying, and I believe you said Travis Clay. Clay Travis. That sit there and say, what's going to happen when he has to win the game with his arm? And yeah, he has 2 games against the Dolphins and the Bengals where he had a perfect quarterback rating, and he has 8 of his 15 touchdowns in those 2 games. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of other teams have to play the Bengals and the Dolphins, and nobody else has put up a perfect quarterback rating.
No,
and they say he can't throw from the pocket. He's a higher rated passer in the pocket than he is outside the pocket. And on top of that, you look at some of these throws that dude made in this game. The little sidearm flick that Andrews made a one-handed catch on. The sidearm flick that Hayden Hurst made a catch on for a first down. You look at the first play of the game where he throws that deep pass to Hollywood. He's getting hit in the chest as he's throwing that ball. And if Hollywood doesn't stumble over his own feet, that's a touchdown.
Might go in for a touchdown.
You look at the other touchdown pass that he threw, the touchdown pass he actually did throw to Hollywood. He got hit from the side and from the front as he's releasing the ball, and he throws an absolute dime right into his breadbasket in the end zone. The touchdown passes to Mark Andrews were pinpoint passes. You mentioned to me in prep for the show the pass to Boyle. When Boyle almost scored the touchdown, he was getting hit in the chest on that play too. This is a guy who, what else does he have to do? You play the teams on your schedule. Last I checked, these teams are in the NFL. And this is going to be another one of these games where Lamar might have to win it with his arm. And guess what? He's going to win it with his arm because he has the arm, the accuracy. He's improved 8 percentage points in completion percentage this year. This is a guy who's significantly lowered his turnover ratio from last year to this year. And speaking on that, another thing that I have an issue with, and I have these fans on Twitter who are coming at me. They're saying the Chargers figured it out last year against the Ravens in the playoffs. Against a rookie quarterback the offense wasn't designed around his playing abilities, it was designed around Joe Flacco, making his 8th career start, his first ever playoff game at 21 years old, and on top of that, you had Marty Mornhinweg, who refused to change the game plan for 3.5 quarters against a team that had seen them 2 weeks prior. 58 of 59 plays, they had 7 D-backs on the field. Nobody else had done it more than 18 times in the game. They did 58 of 59 plays in that game. Yep. Do you honestly believe that the Ravens aren't prepared for that? 1. And 2, that nobody else has tried this? Because all these NFL teams have film of that game and every other game that Lamar Jackson has played in, and nobody's been able to stop him. So don't give me this crap that the Chargers have the blueprint for how to beat him. That's why Marty Mornhinweg is no longer here, and that's why Greg Roman is now getting consideration as the top head coach candidate going into this offseason.
You got that right.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. And when Lamar Jackson goes out there and throws for 250 yards and 3 more touchdowns this week and torches that Texans defense, are they going to... I can already hear it now. Well, yeah, but he did that against a 29th ranked passing defense. Get out of my face. I don't want to hear it anymore. This is the last time I'm going to address this, because after this, you're hating on the guy because you just don't like him.
Yep. It's spoken truly. And just to touch on your point just a little bit, and I've already seen it this year. We've all seen it watching the Ravens. You know what the response for the Ravens was to that San Diego heavy defensive backfield, 7 DBs on the field? All right, we'll play 3 tight ends and Patrick Ricard, and we'll just bulldoze the ever-loving out of you every single play. Because 7 DBs, they can't get around all that beef. Mm-hmm. I don't care how fast you are. We'll just straight power you to death. You're not getting into the backfield with all that beef on that offensive line. 3 tight ends who are 3 very, very... We have the best blocking tight end in all of football in Nick Boyle. Mm-hmm. Mark Andrews is no slouch. He's learned the fact that he needs to learn to block. Hayden Hurst holds his own, and we have probably the best blocking and all-around two-way player in all of football in Patrick Ricard. That's a 300-pound dude who plays fullback.
And not to mention the fact that there's a reason that they went out and signed Mark Ingram.
Yes.
So that they could, they could negate all those D-backs in the field with a power run game.
There was a method to the madness in setting up these packages they set up. And Greg Roman, who is probably by far the best run game coordinator you could possibly find in all of football. Mm-hmm. I know in the NFL he's highly, highly touted. And we see it as Ravens fans as we watch these games. The way he dictates with his run game and his coordinating, it's phenomenal. But, you touch on this with the hate that gets spewed out of people's mouths. And I was going to touch on this MVP talk with my shade. It's something, and you mentioned the guy's name, Clay Travis. Mm-hmm. I don't know if anybody out there who watches this podcast has heard of the show. It's Lock It In. It comes on FS1. It's on after Speak for Yourself with Whitlock and Wiley. This guy, it's a betting show. It's a false betting show, basically. And this guy said it yesterday. He said his top 10, he has Lamar Jackson ranked as his 9th out of the top 10 in MVP candidacy. And the more lunacy that comes out of this guy's mouth is, he says that Kirk Cousins is going to be his MVP this year. Now, I'm sorry. Now, Kirk Cousins has played very well in the last 5-6 weeks. Mm. But I don't know if anybody who watches the NFL recalls. I do. Kirk Cousins had his own second best receiver in Stephon Diggs asking for a damn trade to get the hell out of Minnesota. Right. But this douche really thinks that he is going to be the MVP. And consistently, I sat there and watched the show today before we all got together for this. Said that Lamar Jackson does not throw the ball. Are you insane?
What games are these people watching?
What the hell are you watching? Clay Travis, the dude made 5 or 6 pinpoint passes with a guy in his chest just this past week. It was against the Bengals. And then everybody wants to say, now look, Lamar Jackson to me is the MVP right now. It can change. There's 7 games left in the season. I get it. It can change. I'm not taking anything away from Russell Wilson, who is most other people's top candidate. But let's not sit there and say, well, he Lamar only did it against the Bengals, and blah, that's the only reason he had a perfect passer rating. Remind me, who was it that Seattle and Russell Wilson played in Week 1? Cincinnati Bengals, correct?
And they almost lost.
The team we just beat, 49-13. Anybody remember the score of that game?
It was like a 3-point game.
Seattle beat them by 1 point. 1. Russell Wilson did not have a perfect passer rating in that game. He had to come back and beat them at home against the Cincinnati Bengals.
You can make the argument that the better quarterback on the field that day was Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton had a much better day.
400-yard game, couple touchdowns.
Stop with the... He did it against this. He did it against that. For your MVP, talk about how he played against the other. Name me one other quarterback has a passer rating that's perfect against either of those two teams this year. I can stop and wait until I die.
I think
because it's not a correct answer.
You can only name one other quarterback in the NFL that has a perfect quarterback rating at any point this year, and that's Aaron Rodgers.
Yes,
once,
one time. So stop with this MVP talk. With your whole downplay is, well, Lamar's only done it against this team or this team. Well, stop me if I'm wrong. Russell Wilson's only win against a winning team this year is against the damn San Francisco 49ers, who they just beat Monday night.
That's a good win. That's a good
win. But
he tried to lose
let's not make the mistake that he cost himself multiple times, and they should have lost that game if the 49ers had Robbie Gould still kicking. They had a guy they had to pull off the street to try to win that game in overtime. Mm-hmm. I literally watched every snap of that game Monday night. Russell Wilson had a bad fumble that led to a touchdown return, mm-hmm. and he had a bad interception trying to go in for the touchdown in the overtime. That was picked and ran back 47 yards. Those are two very bad MVP moments.
Mm-hmm. And people talk about how incredible Russell Wilson was. I was more impressed with the 49ers' ability to keep that game close and almost pull out the victory despite 9 drop passes by their receiving corps. It was no George Kittle, no Emmanuel Sanders.
Awful offensive performance all the way around for both teams. I mean, it was bad. But to sit there and try to tell me this MVP debate is, well, Lamar's only done it against da-da-da-da-da, or he doesn't throw the ball. He doesn't throw it accurately. He can't do this. This is what I saw from Clay Travis today. He doesn't do this. That's funny, because I saw him do it 15 times more accurately than damn near anybody I've seen all season. But he can't throw the ball. Wait until he burns your rear end. Kirk Cousins is going to have a Kirk Cousins moment. It hasn't happened quite yet. But believe me, Kirk Cousins always has a Kirk Cousins moment. If he makes the playoffs, he'll do it there. Because that's exactly what he does. He folds like a bad lawn chair. Mm-hmm. And I'm tired of these MVP talks where if you have Russell Wilson as your MVP, I'm not hating on you. If you have Christian McCaffrey as your MVP, not hating on that either. But don't slight Lamar because he only did it against Cincinnati and Miami and blah, 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 blah. Shut up. Just shut up.
Well, and it's a lazy, reckless, and irresponsible take from any journalist, analyst, pundit, whatever the hell you want to call them. It's lazy.
It's just blind hate.
And you're not watching these games.
It's blind hate.
You're watching highlights, right? If that, or you're looking at a stat sheet.
I don't even think they're watching highlights. To be perfectly honest, I really think, honestly, anybody who has these kind of detractions, Clay Travis, Eric Mangini, anybody who's talked pure garbage about Lamar Jackson this year, they're basing everything off of what they saw last year. I don't even think they're watching this year's games. Because if you've watched any of this year's games, the kid has proven endlessly he can make the passes. He makes the throws with pressure in his face. Stop being a pure hater just because you don't like his style of play. Right. I'm the first one to admit. I've waited. I waited all last year. Me and Paul talked about it last year at length several times. Let's wait and see how the kid progresses.
Because I can't win like this.
I had my own skepticism because we're not going to be able to run the ball 50 times a game and him running it 25 times a game and sustain it.
Right.
I wanted to see him improve as a passer, and guess what? He's improved as a passer, and he is showing us exactly what he can do, and it's only going to get better from here.
13-3 in his first career 16 regular season starts, and right now he has a quarterback rating over 100. They said it's the first time in NFL history that two quarterbacks 25 years old or younger will face off with quarterback ratings over 100 when Deshaun Watson and the Texans take on Lamar Jackson and the Ravens this Sunday at 1 o'clock at M&T Bank Stadium. It's going to be a hell of a game.
It's going to be one hell of a game. I mean, this has all the makings of, if it wasn't for the damn Patriots and the Eagles being on Sunday Night Football this week, I don't see any way where you wouldn't have flexed it to Sunday night, because this is two of top 5 MVP candidates, two black quarterbacks, two quarterbacks who are at the very pinnacle of their game right now, going head to head, and this is must-see TV.
Absolutely.
If it's 45-42, defenses be damned, I'm still going to enjoy it. I'm a defensive guy. I love defense, but I'm looking forward to the kind of show both of these guys are going to put on that field at M&T Bank Stadium.
It's going to be something to be seen. Now let's take a breath now, and let's get away from the whole Lamar Jackson talk and all the hatred towards the people hating on him, and let's move on to the playoff push. You have the Browns and the Steelers playing on Thursday Night Football. You have two offenses. One offense in the Browns that's severely underperformed this year. Another offense in the Steelers, who lost Le'Veon Bell. They lost Antonio Brown. James Conner's been hurt. They lost Ben Roethlisberger in week 2. And they're bad. Their offense is bad. Mason Rudolph is mediocre at his best and downright awful at his worst. Juju Smith-Schuster is being double covered and can't get open like he used to when he had AB on the other side of the field.
Yep.
You know, this is a team that right now is 5-4. They've won 4 straight games because of their defense. And they've also played some bad teams. They don't have a marquee win this year unless you think that the win over the Chargers or the Colts is marquee.
Well, the Rams. They just played the Rams.
The Rams are playing like absolute
I guess that would probably
garbage.
be your marquee win, but it was at home, and the Rams have their own pathetic problems on their especially their offensive line. But I think that plays right into Pittsburgh's hands with this game. I mean, think about it. Cleveland's known for what on the offensive line? Bad line play. Bud Dupree and T.J. Watt have been flying off the edge these last 4 weeks and just creating havoc all over the field. And it's led to a lot of interceptions from Minka Fitzpatrick. Their defense has been downright scary these last 4 weeks.
Their ears back and they're coming after it.
It's one of these games where you hate to root for any team out of this. You really do. But you almost kind of root for the Browns because that knocks the Steelers down another game.
And the Steelers' schedule is easier down the stretch. Now, I know last week I said I'd see maybe 2 wins. I expect them to lose to the Rams. And I was wrong. I did not expect to see the Rams be that bad. That game sucked. That game was boring. It sucked. The Rams couldn't get anything going offensively. The Steelers, they never get anything going offensively. It was just a bad football game, and I was sorry that I had to watch it. It was bad. But you look at the Browns and what Nick Chubb is doing this year with that offensive line blocking for him, because they're bad.
Oh, yeah, they're very bad.
It's incredible. He is, in my opinion, arguably the best running back in football. He had over 100 yards last game. Baker Mayfield, 38 yards passing the other day, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Second straight game where he did not turn the football over after turning it over at least one time in each of his first 7 games this year. I said that the Browns are going to beat the Bills, and I said the Browns are going to beat the Steelers on Thursday Night Football. I'm sticking to that. The Browns have to go 6-1 or 7-0 the rest of the way to make the playoffs at this point. The Steelers
even think about making the playoffs.
Right, and the Steelers have a little bit easier of a path, but they still have to play the Ravens. And so do the Browns, for that matter. To me, I think the Browns are going to win. Wouldn't be surprised if they don't win, but the game is in Cleveland.
It is. And
whoever loses this game is probably winning the next one, which is 2 weeks later. So we'll see how that goes. I hate that the Steelers are sticking around because I don't think that they're good enough to stick around. But they're getting lucky breaks. Like the Ravens got lucky breaks last year. Yeah. Or 2 years ago when they faced nothing but backup quarterbacks all season, and they still failed to make the playoffs. Yeah. But the Steelers are getting those breaks right now.
They are. I'm kind of half-heartedly rooting for the Browns here because I know the scenario, but I honestly think the Steelers are going to go in there and steamroll.
You think so?
Call me crazy, the way I'm seeing that defense, the way that defense is playing against that offensive line, and the way Baker Mayfield has a penchant for making very, very bad mistakes at inopportune times, it's a recipe for disaster for Cleveland. And I just feel like that Steelers defense is carrying them as far as they can possibly carry them. And I think the Steelers I really think they steamroll. I think the defense gets a couple of touchdowns in this.
Well, you look at it, Kareem Hunt came back.
Yeah.
First game back, averaged 7.5 yards a carry, 4 carries, 30 yards, and 7 receptions for 44 yards.
Yeah.
I think that this Cleveland team is playing with confidence, and I think that they're going to go in there. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a down-to-the-wire game, but I think that they're going to win by a score. That's just my opinion. Now, you look at the rest of the AFC, and there's a lot of teams bunched together, 4-5, 5-4, 5-5. The Bills are that 5 seed right now, first wild card team at 6-3. They just lost a game to the Browns last week. They've got the Dolphins and Broncos before they have a 4-game stretch against the Cowboys, Ravens, Steelers, and Patriots before their season ends with a bit of a cupcake against the Jets.
That hurts.
That could be 4 straight losses for that Bills team, and if you're looking at it, that's a 9-7 football team. And 9-7 right now might get you into the playoffs.
I'd almost take the Broncos beat them. That Broncos defense is good enough to hold down that shoddy, half-hearted offense, and the the Bills defense, has shown some holes these last few weeks that they weren't showing earlier in the season, and their run defense has been suspect at best, and I think that's hurting them really bad right now.
Well, if that Bills team has any kind of grit in them,
they got to fight.
They got to fight, and they got to win that game. You cannot lose to the Broncos and then hit that 4-game stretch against 4 right now playoff teams and expect to have a shot at the playoffs. No. You have to win the games you're supposed to win and maybe get lucky and win a game or two in that 4-game
you weren't
stretch
supposed to.
that you're not supposed to win. Steelers, we just talked about them. They have to find a way to find 4 to 5 wins in the next 7 games. They have games against the Bills, the Cardinals, the Bengals. There's probably 3 wins
at least.
Right there.
You'd think.
So right there, you're looking at an 8-win team, and then they're going to play the Ravens tough. They're going to play the Browns tough. That's a scary team right now, just because of their defense. Like I said, that offense has been terrible, but that defense could get them there. Raiders. You don't know what to make of the Raiders. Their pass defense is god-awful. Their run defense is about middle of the pack, less than 100 yards a game. They're 5-4 right now. They have the Bengals and the Jets back-to-back, which should get them to 7-4, right? But then it gets tough. They got to play the Chiefs, the Titans, the Jags, and the Chargers before ending with the Broncos. I still think that the Raiders are a year away. I think that they are going to be on the outside looking in, but I think that this is a great stepping stone for sustained success, especially with all those first-round draft picks they stockpiled last year for moving forward. I think John Gruden has that team primed to make a playoff push, no pun intended, next year.
That first-round pick they got this year, both of them, Josh Jacobs is by far the offensive rookie of the year in the NFL.
Absolutely. Over 800 yards rushing.
That guy has been phenomenal. And the edge rusher they got, his name escapes me right now, but out of Clemson, I believe.
They took a safety. They took John Abrams.
No, they took another edge rusher, Clellan or something.
His name
like
escapes me, but I know that they took Abrams in the first round also.
It might have been the second round, but their picks have been panning out.
Right.
And as long as they keep making their picks pan out, and whatever's going on out there, they're believing in themselves, and they're doing everything they need to do just to win games, and that's all that matters. To just win the games. Everybody
was talking last year after John Gruden signed that 10-year, $100 million contract. They were talking fire him after 1 season.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, John Gruden is a damn good football coach, and he's very football smart. And he's a player's coach. He has his players believing in him because he believes in them.
Yep.
John Gruden, I said, you give this guy till his 3rd year before you decide whether or not you want to get rid of him because he got all those draft picks. Yeah, and he lost Khalil Mack and he lost Amari Cooper, but he got 5 first-round draft picks out of this, right?
Yep.
So this is a team. I said, you watch 2 to 3 years. When last year I said 2 to 3 years, this is going to be a scary good football team, and they are proving it now because they are so much better than anybody gave them credit for this year.
They get a few pieces, they're going to be very dangerous.
Absolutely. Colts 5-4. I think they're done. I think they're done. Jacoby Brissett, he's going to come back and play probably this week. But the thing about that is, you cannot lose to the Dolphins, even with Brian Hoyer at quarterback, and expect to be taken seriously, because just like the Steelers, and I hate to keep bringing them up, just like the Steelers are winning because of their defense, that Colts defense needs to take that next step and beat the Miami Dolphins. You lose to the Dolphins, you're not making the playoffs. I just don't see it.
It's bad. It sucks. It sucks for them because Brissett went down with a freak injury, but I think they were poised to make that playoff run.
Yeah.
I think they could have made some noise, but with him going down for these couple of games, it just kind of set them back. And I don't know that they can climb back into it. Maybe they can. I don't know, because the AFC is just so wide open. I mean, Tennessee, Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, literally. You never know with any team in the AFC right now. So it's besides those couple of top tier teams, but I don't know. I think they're dead in the water, but it wouldn't surprise me to see them climb out of the grave and make some noise.
You can certainly make a case for it. The Dolphins, we thought they wouldn't get a win all year. They've won 2 games in a row, right? So anything can happen.
Dolphins are believing in themselves a little bit.
But the Colts only play one team the rest of the way with a losing record, and that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And you mentioned Jekyll and Hyde, that is the Tennessee Titans. They're 5-5. Playing with a lot of confidence since they switched quarterbacks to Ryan Tannehill. He's playing with a lot of confidence. He is a game changer for them.
Yep.
But they're 5-5, and they're playing the Texans, Saints, and Texans the last 3 games of the year.
They're going to be 8-8.
Yeah, that's
calling it right now.
That's at best.
They're an 8-8 team.
An 8-win team. Tannehill's a nice story. Derrick Henry's a monster who got hot at the end of the year last year. He's getting hot at the end of the year this year. But I think it's too little, too late. I think that they, hindsight being 2020. Did they wait too long to get rid of Mariota?
Probably.
Possibly. And it's biting them in the butt now.
But even for me, it's one of that Jekyll and Hyde. They were destined to be an 8-8 team again. Mm-hmm. It's just because their defense will come out like gangbusters and make plays and do things, and you're like, wow, this defense, man, they're scary good. And then a week later, they come out and they play like a high school football team. Like they've completely forgotten how to run a defensive scheme or tackle or chase the ball. I don't get it. I don't understand it, especially with a defensive head coach. I don't understand it for the life of me, but it's an 8-8 team.
And this is a team every year. They're right in the middle of the pack, and I don't get it. I never get it. 2 years ago, the Ravens wiped the floor with the Titans. And then the Ravens are out of the playoff on the outside looking in, and the Titans make the playoffs. And it just did not make sense to me that this team, a lot of times, it's like you said, Jekyll and Hyde, a lot of times they overachieve, a lot of times they underachieve. And when you have that, you have about an 8-8 football team. 8-8 ain't making the playoffs this year.
No.
So, all right, we're about to wrap this show. We're going to move on to our predictions. I went first last week, so I'm going to let you take the ball and run with it this time around. Ravens, Texans, 1 o'clock Sunday at the bank. My fiance's going to hate that I called it that. Who are you taking and why?
This is a tough one. I've been going back and forth all week since about halftime of the Cincinnati game, basically. It's going to be a hell of a game. Calling a shootout. I think both teams get over 30 points this week. It may come down to whoever has the ball last. It's shaping up to be one of those things. I don't see how any team blows any other team out in this one. There's always a possibility, but I don't see it. I'm going. I think Miles Boykin has a little bit of an unsung hero step up in him this week. Lamar mentioned he wants to get his receivers a little bit more involved, and I think he does. This probably had my heart over my head. I think the Ravens pull this one out. I think they make another statement. I think Lamar outduels Deshaun Watson 38-35.
38-35. I like it. I look at this game, and you have 2 top 5 MVP candidates going head-to-head, right? And that terrible pass defense for the Texans, I think, is going to open up a lot of passing lanes for Lamar. I think he's going to throw for over 250. I think he's going to throw for 3 touchdowns. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to get the running game going. Now look, they faced that 4th-ranked run defense. The 4th-ranked run defense of the Patriots and torched them for 210 yards, right? So they could get that run game going, and if they can run the ball much more effectively than they did last week, because last week 136 yards was their low water mark for the year, running the football,
which is pathetic.
Yeah,
I think only 136 rushing yards. That's bad.
But if the Ravens get back up to where they've been, 195, 200 yards rushing, they're controlling the clock, they're running the football. I still don't think that running game passes 150 this week. I think you see a lot of this put on Lamar's right arm. I think Brown has a big game. I think he's going over 100 yards and a score, maybe 2.
That'd be nice.
The defense is going to get abused a little bit. I think that Humphrey has his hands full. We might see his worst game of the year going up against DeAndre Hopkins. You mentioned Will Fuller's back. That's a guy who can't stay on the field. But when he does, boy, is he nasty. He had a game earlier this year, 14 catches, 217 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Averages over 16 a catch. So.
Yeah, and then you're looking at a run game. We mentioned earlier in the show, averaging 5 yards a carry. Carlos Hyde's having a breakout year. Duke Johnson's averaging 5.5 yards a carry right now. I think that even still, playing at home works to the Ravens' benefit. I'm calling 34-27 Ravens. I think that Deshaun Watson is going to play at an MVP level, but he's going to turn the ball over to that opportunistic defense at a very untimely moment for the Texans, and it's going to cost them the game.
No.
So
let's hope for it.
That's the predictions. That's our show for today. Thanks for tuning in. We keep saying that we want to go under 30 minutes, and we keep going over 40. Sorry, we have
hard to do with all these teams we got to talk about.
Yeah, we have a lot to say. So hopefully you're sticking with us and listening. I know a few of you are. Hopefully more.
We appreciate it.
Certainly appreciate it. Hopefully we're talking about a Ravens win over the Texans next week. And if not, hey, season's not over. Sometimes teams lose. So until then, as always, go Ravens. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week.
Take it easy.